G'day, I'm Paul. What if I told you could have a 3 Series or a C-Class, but for less money? Well, that's what this car is behind me. It's the Volvo S60. It is the brand's competitor to cars like the C-Class, the 3 Series, and it's kind of like a premium version of the Volkswagen Passat in that regard. Pricing starts at just under $55,000. You can go for the wagon, which is the V60, for an extra $2,000, and you can see the rest of the S60 pricing down in the comments section below. Today, what we're going to do is a detailed review, and I want to see whether this really does compete with a 3 Series or a C-Class so that you know when you're buying whether this is worth looking at instead and saving a bit of money. Now, if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes on the side there, or you can scroll down to the description for the links to jump ahead. And while you're at it, I'd love it if you could hit subscribe and also press the bell icon, because that's going to tell you every time we drive a new car. Let's talk exterior. I personally think Volvo has nailed the design department of all their cars. They just look nice and imposing on the road. And here with the S60, you can pick from 13 different colors, and all but black and white are $1,200 extra. Let's have a look at these details a little closer. This grille, it looks really cool. So it's recessed a little bit. It's got these vertical slats, and then you can see the radiator behind it. Proudly worn Volvo badge there too. And here, this car has the optional 360-degree camera. So the camera is embedded into the front grille there. Front parking sensors down the bottom. This has both front and rear parking sensors. And it's just an elegant but imposing design. And that follows on here to the headlights. So they're full LED headlights, but they have this signature Thor's hammer. And I think that really just gives the car a little bit of aggression out on the road, especially when it's coming up behind you. On the side here, the base model comes with 17-inch alloy wheels, 50 profile rubber. Often the issue with Volvos, unless you option air suspension, the ride is incredibly firm because they fit these sporty, low-profile tyres. Here, on the other hand, they're very chubby tyres, so you're getting a lot of padding there, and they're not a huge alloy wheel either. So I'm keen to see whether this rides better than other Volvos I've driven. In terms of the size, the car's around the same size as a C-Class or a 3 Series, but it doesn't feel big on the road, and yet it doesn't feel too small either. And I'll be keen to see whether there is enough legroom in the back, because that's often the biggest issue with a C-Class or a 3 Series. You just cannot fit passengers in the rear. Have a look at this back. I really like it. So you've got these futuristic looking LED lights that wrap around the bottom. Volvo's LED game is really strong. So you can see at the front there, you've got the Thor's hammer, but at the back, you've got an equally imposing design that'll make this car really stand out at night time. The entire S60 range in Australia is all-wheel drive, so you're getting that from the base model up. And despite the fact that all this stuff costs extra, this car starts at a much lower price than a 3 Series or a C-Class. So you are getting a whole lot more value for money here straight out of the box. So we're inside the S60 now, and I really like what Volvo's done here. They've gone a slightly different direction with their infotainment system. It's a vertical screen, and that gives them a bit more real estate around the cabin to add things like these vertical air vents and just the tiered dashboard system. I like the way that you have the top section here, and it comes down and it's broken apart by these metallic elements that are kind of cold to the touch. It really just gives it a classy appearance, and everything looks like it's more expensive than it actually is. And I think that's the theme with this car. Now, can you hear that? Yeah, that's the noise of flexing plastic. So while it all looks really good, the build quality I don't think is amazing. And if I grab this, the whole center section starts making noise. So this car's now built in the US. It's not a Swedish built car, and it's also not Chinese built like some of Volvo's other products. And it's made even funnier because there's a Swedish flag here. I think this is like the sort of Australian equivalent of people putting Chev badges on their Holden Commodores, and then in the US on the Chev SS, then putting Holden badges on there. But anyway, let's see how soft touch the dashboard is. We'll get our hardness tester out. This measures hardness from 0 to 100, where 0 is soft and 100 is hard. I'm going to attack that dashboard. We will see what it's like. So it's in the 70s there, which is surprising because it's actually quite soft to touch, but it is quite hard on the meter. Let's try this center section. That's not too bad. That's under 50. So yeah, look, a bit of a mixed bag. It does look nice. It is all sort of nice and soft, but yeah, really not liking that. Okay, let's talk infotainment. Volvo's gone down the path of the portrait screen to afford them a little bit more space when it comes to stacking applications, and then you can control it just as a touchscreen, or beneath it you have the ability to go up and down with volume and then play and pause, and then you also have a shortcut button at the bottom that takes you back to this home screen. The home screen's stacked in a way where you have navigation at the top, radio, and then your phone pairing. You can then maximize each of these. So if I click on the maximize button for navigation, it makes that take up most of the screen. It's a fairly quick system, moves around easily. You can switch between 2D and 3D modes. There's a compass up the top there as well. And then you have additional functions such as the ability to set destinations using a number of different fields. You can select points of interest, or what you can do is search for them by name using the keyboard. Alternatively, you can write things in like that, or you can go down the path of putting a full address in the traditional way. On the home screen, you also have the ability to swipe down from the top to get access to the car's settings, the navigation settings, or the radio settings, depending in which context menu you're in, plus the owner's manual. I'll show you what that looks like quickly. So it's an interactive manual. Once it loads, you're able to jump through to different sections. So for example, if we want to have a look at the exterior, we want to have a look at the headlights, this will tell you how to replace the bulbs. So it's a good way to remove the need for a physical manual. Everything is built into the screen. We'll jump over to radio. The car comes standard with AM, FM, DAB plus digital radio, plus the ability to store data and then stream from your phone as well. In terms of phone connectivity, you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are both paired using a cable. There's no wireless linking system. I'll show you what that looks like. The integration isn't that special. So the downside to the portrait screen means that Apple CarPlay, which is natively a widescreen function, looks a little bit compact and squeezed in there, and you can see it kind of looks a little bit awkward. There's no real easy way around that while you do have a portrait screen. You can swipe to the left. This brings up the rest of your settings for the radio, and then allows you to go to the apps that are built into the car. You can then add apps as well. These all need data functionality, so you need to pair the car to a data device such as your phone for them to work, but it is handy having stuff like Spotify if you don't have a phone capable of smartphone mirroring. Inside here, you will find the ability to look at the car's status. So these are any error messages the car's producing. Whether the car's oil levels and things are right, they all appear when the car is on. Same with tire pressure monitoring. And then there's another feature here, which is your driver performance, what kind of fuel economy you've been achieving, and then you can customize what that graph looks like as well. There's another section here if you swipe all the way across to the right. This is where you can set all your safety aids, so switching stability control on and off, and then features like your lane keeping assistant, how far the distance alert will come on, the stop-start system, and then you're able to activate the camera. Drop the headrests from here, which is pretty cool. There's also a reduced guard here, so if you are parking the car somewhere with the windows down, the alarm will go off if it detects movement inside the car. By hitting that button, the alarm won't do anything, so it means you can leave your pet in the car if you have to, although I think you're meant to leave your pet in the car, but whatever scenario it is where stuff's going to be moving inside the car when it's locked. And then you can also change the cornering lights and a couple of other sort of bits and pieces there as well. So it is a really good infotainment system. The only thing I don't like, and I've had to start the car here to show you this, is that adjusting temperatures while you're driving is a little tricky. So pretend you're driving here, you've got to move that up and down, and if you want to try and sort of nail your temperature, you're taking your eyes off the road. There isn't just a swivel, which I'm not really a big fan of, because it means that you do need to get your attention away from the task of driving to do something as simple as changing the temperature. While the car's still on, I'll show you here the settings menu that allows us to adjust what's displayed ahead of the driver. So if we jump into the My Car menu, you can change the themes on the display ahead of the driver. So you can go minimalistic, performance, chrome rings. Then you can also change the display theme over here. That automatically switches between day and night as required. And then you can also change the contents of the display. So if we go into here, you can change it to show the map in the center, which is what we have now. You can change it to show the current media, or to show nothing at all, just so you get the speedometer there. And then finally here in the settings menu, you can adjust the rest of the car's features. One that I like though is if you come down to communication, the ability to set the car up as a Wi-Fi hotspot, so your other passengers in the car can connect to the car's Wi-Fi system and share one connection instead of all having to have data. Pretty useful if you've got kids that have iPads and other connected devices. Let's talk about the other features that you're getting. So you have an auto-dimming rear vision mirror. Being a Volvo, they're pretty big on safety, so low and high-speed autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian detection. You have blind spot monitoring built into those wing mirrors, a lane keeping assistant, reverse view camera. But one thing to note here, Volvo has kind of gone down the path of Porsche in terms of options. So this car may look like it comes with a lot of stuff like your moonroof, you have the 360 camera. It's all optional features, so it is disappointing that that a lot of that stuff isn't standard. I think I'd prefer probably a slightly higher base price with more standard equipment as opposed to needing to come in and spend another 3, 4, 5 grand to get some of the features that you'd expect to have in this caliber of car. Now, what does the key look like? It's quite a cool looking key. So it looks like a block. You've got the Volvo there on the back. And then on the side, you have like an emergency button. And then on the other side, lock, unlock, and then a button for the boot. And that sits in your pocket. So it's a proximity entry for the doors and also start. You simply have it in your pocket, flick this switch and the car switches on. Okay, what about storage? I'm going to disconnect my phone. Let's have a look. So up the front, there's like a little coin tray type thing. I'll see if that fits the phone. Okay, the phone kind of fits snugly into there. Then there's this cover that retracts, and that gives you a whole bunch of extra storage with a 12-volt outlet. We'll see if that fits our bottle. That fits in there perfectly fine. You can actually fit 3 bottles along there, and then inside the door you have bottle storage as well, and then room for other bits and pieces. Center console, that's reasonably sized. That's where you'll find your 2 USB ports. Over here we have the glove box, another reasonably sized glove box. And then I love the fact that the manual and other sort of parts that you don't need to access often are hidden away at the top, so they're not going to get in the way of actually being able to store things in there. There's also some netting off to the side. What about seat comfort? It's probably my favorite thing about Volvo's seat comfort. This seat looks comfortable when you're looking at it, and I can tell you right now, it is very comfortable to sit in. So, yeah, that's just nice. It feels like it'd be good for a long drive. Steering wheel sits nicely in the hand. Everything here is really easy to reach, but like I said, it's just a little bit fiddly than all of your critical functions are here on the screen. Why not just have a couple of buttons here for the climate control? So back seat, what's it like in the S60? Surprisingly roomy. Check that out. I've got a fair bit of knee room there, and this seat is pretty far back in my standard driving position. Toe room isn't amazing, and there's a weird sensation of the floor being really high or these seats being really low. Like my knees are sitting up. It's like I'm standing to attention, ready to focus on something a little strange. But the seats are extremely comfortable, and I love that they've gone to the effort here to put leather all the way right through to the door, so they don't just stop on the edge of the seat. So it kind of shows that they've put a little bit of extra effort in. Center armrest here. This is like spring loaded as well, so as you bring it down, it's got a soft descent. There's a tray there if you want to play like checkers or something like that. Up the front, you have the bottle holders. They fit in well. They've got rubber edges on them and then a little tray at the bottom. That is joined by a bottle holder in the door that's very unco and weird and kind of just swallows the bottle randomly. So that's not the best design in the world. Under here, there's even more storage if you want to hide some stuff. Now, there is a ski port here, but it's one way. So you've got to open it from the boot. You can't then open it from here, which is strange because normally they have a system where you can lock it from the boot, so you can't open it from here, but this has just no physical ability to do that, which is kind of an odd thing to have. ISOFIX points on the 2 outside seats. Unlike Volvo's SUVs that have the rising booster seat built into them, these are just a flat base and they have no further adjustment. Map pockets in the back of the seats, 12-volt outlet, little coin trinket tray there, and then the air vents are built into the door so you can actually adjust very nicely where that's going to be blowing. Now this is a cool feature. So a lot of cars have like a retractable sun blind at the back that's powered. This one is manual. It does mean that you can just make it a little more private in the back here if you want to, and then your top tethers are built into these covers at the back. So yeah, overall, it's a nice place to be seated. With the mass adoption of SUVs, people are kind of forgetting how practical sedans can be. So let's have a look at the boot space here. So you crack the boot open just using that rubber button under there. The boot comes open with this spring-loaded system. You know what I find interesting? A while ago, a lot of manufacturers trialled using a hydraulic system for boot arms, but you can see here, Volvo's stuck with a tried and tested method. I can see a spring hidden under there. So 442 litres of cargo space available. You have a little net on the side there, a 12-volt outlet, and then beneath the floor you have a space-saver spare tyre, a jack, and a couple of other electronic components. Now, before I put the luggage in, have a look at this. To drop the rear seats, you don't drop them from inside. There's 2 buttons up the top here that you press. It drops the headrests and then the seats just fold out of the way. That's a pretty clever system. I like that sort of stuff. Let's see how it fits our bags in. We'll pop these in. There we go. Not a problem at all. So decent sized boot, easy to get bags in and out, and with a boot floor that sits below the lip, everything's going to be holding steady. Before I close this, you have a safety triangle, and up here you've got a couple of buttons. So this one's blank because in upper models this is a self-closing boot and that presses it. This one, on the other hand, if you push that with the key in your pocket and then shut the boot, it's going to lock the car as you walk away. So we have jumped behind the wheel of the S60. Let me run you through the engine specifications first. So at the entry level, you've got a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine. It makes 187 kilowatts of power and 350 newton meters of torque. That's all mated to an 8-speed automatic gearbox, and it's just a torque converter, so no dual clutch, no CVT. It's all very straightforward. And you'll notice as well, there's no paddles on the steering wheel. So it's all automatically shifted, or if you do want to do manual shifting, you have to use the gear lever. Officially, that means it's good for a 0 to 100 km/h dash of 6.4 seconds. That's a pretty decent number. It's not going to be crazy fast, but it is fast enough to give you a feeling of pace behind the wheel when you bury the throttle. It also has a decent engine note as well, so when you sink the slipper in, you can hear it doing stuff. So it doesn't sound like a dull thrum. It actually feels like it's doing something and gives you that little kick in the back. Unlike the 3 Series and the C-Class that are both rear-wheel drive, the Volvo system here is all-wheel drive for Australia. So it gives you a little bit more confidence behind the wheel if you're doing a trip to the snow or something like that. It just gives you that added traction and surety that you won't find in a rear-wheel drive or strictly front-wheel drive car. Fuel economy comes in at 7.3 litres per 100 kilometres, but I reckon that's a highly ambitious figure. We're averaging currently 12 litres per 100 kilometres. Granted, the car has been idling a fair bit. We've been doing a little bit of driving to and from locations, and there hasn't been a great deal of highway driving, but that is a big step up from around the 7 litre per 100 mark. And on top of that, you've got to use 95 RON premium unleaded petrol. Let's talk drive modes. So you select them using this cool little switch here. It's like a knurled dial of some sort. So you push it in, brings up the drive modes. You have Eco, Comfort, and Dynamic. For Eco, it's, I don't know, it just kind of reduces air conditioning and slows everything down. Comfort is the one you're going to be using for everyday driving. But if you then put it into Dynamic and find yourself a couple of corners, this feels really impressive. It sticks to the road beautifully, and that all-wheel drive system isn't very clingy or like a lot of on-demand systems where it waits until there's a loss of traction. It actually feels quite progressive. Throttle feel is excellent too. Like, it just picks up and goes. Feeling through the steering is great as well. So in that dynamic mode, it really gives you a sense of engagement behind the wheel. While it isn't 3 Series level in terms of what it feels like, it is damn close. Let's talk about the ride. The ride is sensational. So I don't know why, but in a lot of higher end Volvos that don't have adaptive suspension or air suspension, the ride is absolutely abysmal, and often they're paired with low profile sporty tyres and the R-Design package. Here in the entry level Momentum though, the ride is excellent. It's soaking up bumps beautifully. It doesn't resonate any potholes or sharp brittle edges into the cabin, and it just constantly feels like it's gliding along effortlessly. You don't have to worry about not ticking some suspension option box. You can take it straight out of the box and it is good to go. What about visibility? Visibility out the front's excellent. Visibility out the rear is good as well. The ability to drop those rear headrests means you can get extra viewing out of that rear window. The wing mirrors are pretty decent sized as well, and coupled with the blind spot monitoring system, you're not going to lose any cars in there. So it is an easy car to drive, and even if you're not used to driving a bigger car like this, it's going to be fairly straightforward to park it and get it in and around tight spaces. Noise inside the cabin is really good. It's a quiet place to be seated. The engine can intrude into the cabin a little, so if you give it a punch, you can hear it coming to life, but it's that sporty edge they've tried to give the car, so I think it is all there on purpose. It's not really transmitting road noise, which is the type of noise you really don't want in the car. So Volvo S60, it's not often that you come across a car that you really enjoy driving. The car rides beautifully, the engine's got plenty of poke, and it's really affordable as well. The only area that this car's let down in is the options pricing. It's like a long list of options. It's like a Porsche, just without the Porsche badge. So if you go into it knowing that you're gonna have to tick a few boxes, you'll still come out better than paying for a 3 Series or a C-Class. It's got all-wheel drive as standard, and it's just a really nice and refined car. If you want something a little different that's gonna stand out from the crowd, I'd highly, highly recommend taking one for a test drive. Volvo, big thumbs up from me. If you have enjoyed this video and found it useful, please hit the like button. Also press subscribe and also the bell icon that's going to tell you every single time we publish a new video. While you're there, let us know, have you bought an S60? Did you take one for a test drive? Perhaps you bought a 3 Series or a C-Class over it. If you bought one, are you enjoying it? What's it been like? Let us know in the comments section below. But until next time, Take it easy.